Hi, and welcome to today's discussion. I will be covering the topic today of what are the stages of the project management life cycle. Now, this is the traditional project management delivery method, which I think a lot applies to today's environment. And so, therefore, the area I will be covering today is what are the stages of project management life cycle throughout your whole project delivery stages, etc. So let's crack on. And the first part of the project is really is actually before you do anything is setting it up. So what are the project lifecycle elements? So really what I will be covering is project initiation, project planning, project execution. I've added project monitoring and control, which is a subsection in my opinion, but again, quite an important one, and then project closure. So without further delay, let's go into a bit more detail about each stage. So first one is project initiation. Um, every part of the project, you know, before you do anything, you have to initiate it. Now, what's involved in project initiation? Now, there's many things involved. There's really firstly defining what you actually want to deliver. So the initiation phase is really a definition of the project, what's going to be part of that project, what's going to be, instigated. You're pretty much starting the project. I'm saying to getting all your stakeholders involved, saying, okay, what are we delivering? Why are we delivering it? For what reasons? The key activities really in project initiation. Well, one is to understand what the project's about. Two, to get the right people around. To create the right document set so that you create the baseline. Now, traditionally, you would create a PID, which is a project initiation document, which will then, would be created as part of your initiation. But prior to that, you may have a scope of works, which is SOW. That scope of work to say this is what we want to deliver. Using that baseline, you will then create your PID. Now, PID is a good document, and any traditional delivery where you've got a scope of works and you want to deliver it now, probably not used as much as often, but can be a very useful tool to baseline your project so that we clearly understand what's been delivered by who and what and which parties. It identifies all your stakeholders, i.e. you can do a RACI matrix. So included, which are the people who are responsible, accountable, people you inform and people you consult with, throughout the project. At this stage, because it's right at the early stages, you will only know so much. Create the project team at this stage. Who's going to be in your team? Who's going to do what when? And traditionally, some parts you create a project charter, a basic summary or a headline of what the project is. And then you start creating your project plan. What are the key activities in the project? What's going to happen? What's the high level? You start doing your document set. If you're doing sprints, you start doing your sprint planning. If you're doing a traditional project plan, you start doing your RAID log. For anybody who doesn't know what RAID log is, it's risk actions and issues and dependencies that throughout your project that you start highlighting and putting some sort of RAG status. Now, I can cover those documents in another video in a bit more detail as to what you should put in those documents, which will help you. But really, your project initiation is about getting a clear understanding about what the whole project is about. This then kind of moves on to the next stage of the project, which is project planning. Now, project planning is realistically, now you've got all the information, you've done your very basic high level plan, you start putting all the key details in. Now, definition from my perspective of project planning is really understanding the key activities throughout the project, who will be doing it, the amount of time and effort needs, any activities that have dependencies on each other, i.e. dependencies and let's say an action that cannot be completed without another action, or another service being delivered, etc. Or you got to finish A before you can do B, things like that. So you start putting all that into detail. That's your key activities. There's multiple tools, project plan, which I always go on about, using your MS Project or other tools. And if you're doing sprint planning, you can start using your Kanban boards to create stories, or JIRA, or whatever tools you may have as part of your project. Again, as part of the project planning, resource planning is a key one. Understanding who's going to do what, when, and which persons are you going to be part of your team is key as well. And the one I think is really sometimes is overlooked is risk assessment, and trying to really understand if you know of any risks that you could foresee. Again, you don't have a crystal ball, so don't expect you to know every single thing about risk and what's going to happen in the future. But there are certain things you can foresee, like holidays, people being away, big major events, supplier issues, etc. Again, so all those things can be put into place. Now, once you've done your project planning, you feel comfortable in a position, again, one of the areas of part of project planning is finance, which I didn't cover, is getting your project planning done. And again, initiation, you will have your baseline budget as well that will be created in project initiation, which is really, really important to control that. Now, that all depends on the organization, how that budget is managed and created, but fundamentally from a project perspective, you need to understand how that budget is going to be used and where throughout your initiation and planning stages. Now you've done all that. The next stage really is project execution, and you can see executing is really now. Let's get the project moving. Let's start doing stuff. Traditionally, what happens is, as part of project planning, you start doing things that you can get on with. It doesn't happen in stages. Don't forget, these things can happen. There's a lot of businesses will push you to get these things done reasonably quickly, and you start doing all these phases. So don't think that these phases have to be done incrementally. They have to be done as you feel fit as a project manager to get things done. You can start planning ahead of your initiation, but it helps to have the initiation in place. As part of our project execution, now you've done all your initiation, you've done your planning, you start pushing forward with the delivery of the project, and start assigning activities, start getting your team involved, start putting monitoring in place, start coordinate your teams, start putting in your meeting planners, start putting in your stand-ups, your discussions, start engaging with your stakeholders, start ordering equipment, whatever it may be. Execution is really, really important. Again, execution is also to bring in some quality measures such as change control and management. How you, as part of your execution, you should really understand how you're going to manage change control and manage it throughout your project. Traditionally, you can get nice simple processes predefined wherever you may go. Sometimes you need to define it. How are you going to manage change? What is the process? Do they fill in the form? Do you get it approved? Does it have to go to senior stakeholders? Who signs it off, etc.? All those things need to be done. Now, in reality, as part of project initiation, you would have some sort of baseline in there. Part of your project planning, in your PID, in project initiation, that will have that document, that detail, which says this is the process, which would really, really be helpful with your execution and how to manage change throughout the project. And making sure change management is always on your mind, risk management is always on your mind, mitigation, how you're going to manage all these issues, how you're going to get these things done. There are unforeseen issues, so don't worry about it, that you just have to manage those as best as you can. But execution is where really, in my opinion, is the best part, where you start seeing people, and start building your rapport with your team. So execution is really the fun part in my part, which I really enjoy, and actually getting the work done. The next stage is really project monitoring and control. Now, I've added this in. It's not really a stage, in my opinion. It's more something that you need to constantly think about. How are you going to keep managing your project? How are you going to keep things moving forward, etc.? So what control measures are you going to put in? How are you going to monitor it? Have a standard report every week, or do you review quality control measures? Anything you can put in place that tracks your performance. Again, where are you? What stage are you at? What are you thinking ahead? All those things need to be thought about. What your risk, your quality? Are we delivering a good enough product? Have we actually done the work we had agreed at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? My way of monitoring is putting run books together of clear activities, because your project plan won't have the minute detail of every single activity, but have most of the high level stuff, and then the more detailed stuff, such as programming a switch or building an item, piece by piece by piece, needs to be done in some sort of run book or some sort of measure that you can check who's done what, assign responsibilities, and then you can see where you are. And that should be done throughout your whole project lifecycle. It shouldn't just be done. And then finally, project closure. Really, in my opinion, it's something that really goes off the wayside, and people tend to forget this, but this is a real good one. I think project closure is when you start saying, okay, well, we've delivered, now it's time to shut the project down and make sure we've tidied up the budget, we've done all our documentation, we've updated our documentation, reflect where we were from a certain point of time, we've made sure our contracts are all closed, our financials, budgets are all done, and we start evaluating the project. And one of the key things I always say in project closure is lessons learned. What did you learn? Now, I've done this in many organizations, which has paid dividend, actually. When you get the team together, you get your project colleagues together, you start passing ideas through which make your experience better as a project manager throughout that. You can only learn by doing. The more you do, the easier it becomes, and therefore lessons learned is probably my key lesson for today. So in summary, the stages of the project management life cycle are project initiation, project planning, project execution, project monitoring control, and project closure, all of which are key to most projects and most environments. However, each organization has a different emphasis, and really it will be up to you to see how best you can do those things. I hope that was helpful. Thank you for listening.